electrical panel for the edge. You have your counter, emergency stop, single face, carriage forward reverse, cycle pause, inspection cycle on off, cycle start, bottom top. Those are the top and bottom board settings. Cycle stacker, emergency reset. This indicator light indicates that you have enough air pressure to run the machine, and when it's off, you have insufficient air. This is your on-off switch. Do not turn it off. Do not open the electrical panel until it's off. Pull it out and you put a lock on it. That's all on the electrical panel. This is the air assembly coming into the machine. This is your stacker solenoid. First one is stacker up and down cylinder. Right there. Second one is 2-station cylinder for in and out on the stacker, which is right there. The 7-bank manifold. First one is your top board on the cart. Second one is your bottom board on the cart. Third one is a recycle package that holds the stringers in place. Fourth one is the pop-ups. The next one is your flush inboard package. It keeps the lead board flush. Next one over is your tool bar, up and down. The last one is your individual tools, up, down. You can manually operate them by pushing them, or you can operate them with the electrical panel. On the air assembly, air coming in, on and off. This is your water separator. It has an automatic drain. Automatically drains upon energizing. This is your regulator for the machine, not to exceed 125 psi. This is your dump valve. This is a connection box that connects the wires for the pressure switch and the dump valve get connected in there. This is your oiler. That adds oil to the entire machine. Alright, this is the cart. You have your center stringer. You don't usually move that unless you do a 4-stringer setup. On a 4-stringer setup, you're going to pull this to one side, add your 4-stringer to the other side, and make your connections here for the recycle package, for the in and out of these cylinders that hold the stringers in place. These bars right here are your top board bars. When in use, they come down on the pallet. This is your bottom board. They come up, put the stringers in place, put your deck boards where they need to go upon nailing. This right here is a tape switch, emergency stop. Anytime it's bumped, the power and air get cut off and the dump valve activates. This is your nail position bar. The nail position bar has a tape switch on this side to set your nail position tabs wherever you want nails to fire based on where the boards are.
Devin, line 1. Devin, line 1.
The top is the nailing pattern for the top. The bottom is the nailing pattern for the bottom. It goes through horseshoe photo eyes that tells it when to fire. The top for the top, bottom for the bottom. Line up the tools with the stringers, and that's about it. This is a deck board pusher. This is a backstop for the deck board. All these things have to be adjusted for the pallet. The stringers are held in place with the recycled cylinders. The top board, when it's closed, the outside has to be flush with the outside of the backstop here for the deck boards, and this face right here has to be flush with all of it so that the pallet ends up flush on the outside. These stops are where the deck boards will be held in place on. And that's about it. This in the front is your flush end board package. This activates with forward motion of the machine to press the deck boards forward to this stop here. This is your top board cylinder. This is a magnetic limit switch, number 4 and number 5. If those are not lit, the stacker will not stack. That indicates the arms are open, telling the computer it's okay to stack. There, the MLS switch is on, so the computer knows it's okay to stack. That's very important. And they're both wired in series in this connection box right here. 2 things in that connection box, 4 wire connections. The magnetic limit switch number 4 and 5, and 2 wires to your tape switch, your emergency stop. And that's the cart. These are the air regulators for all the tools. Right now there's no air pressure on number 2. We don't have it there because we're making a 3-stringer pallet. This is the tool air pressure. This is the tool air regulator for the tool, connecting right here to the back of the tool. That's the main tool air pressure. This right here is your air regulator and your tool fire pressure. And that's the 5/32 airline air pressure to the tool fire on the tool, right there. With the max tools that are on here, you want even pressure. The differential pressure is different on different brands. A Stanley tool likes about 5 or 10 pounds less on the tool fire. Max, Pass Load, a few others like even pressure. We're a Magnum distributor. Magnums like even pressure, just like the Max tools that we have here. Number 1 station is that first tool right here. Number 2 would be the second one, but we have it off the machine. Number 3 is now the center. Number 4 is the farthest. At the top, you have the tool fire solenoids that get an output from the computer to fire the tools. You can manually operate them or load the nails by pushing that button right here on the side. This right here is a check valve. It's in place to keep the guns from all firing when the air is cut off on the machine. These are the solenoids. These are MAC valves. Your 5/32 airline going to the tool. That's what those are. Each one individually for each tool. And that's the panel. This is the stacker tower. The inside face to the inside face of over there. On this particular machine, you add 5 inches to your length of pallet so that the arms will stack it correctly. There's a jack screw on the bottom of that far stacker tower down below that holds it tight in position, and you just drag it either way. When you're stacking a pallet for the first time, you might need to adjust the top magnetic limit switch, which opens the clamps, or the middle magnetic limit switch, which closes the clamps when it's stacking it off the cart. The bottom magnetic limit switch is only used when it discharges the pallets, telling the computer that the stacker arms are at the bottom of the stroke and it's okay to stack. This right here is your connection box for the magnetic limit switches. The common and all the electronics on this machine are 24 volt DC. Make sure when you set it up, these air regulators on the top and bottom are all in sequence, and the stacker goes up and down evenly. If you need to speed up or slow down the bottom on the downstroke, you open or close that regulator on the bottom. If you need to speed up or slow down the upstroke, the regulator on top. There's a set of regulators on both this cylinder and the other cylinder on your stacker. Both of them have to be in sequence, but the computer will only read the position of this cylinder because there's a magnetic band on the piston inside of it. And that's what those magnetic limit switches are reading. The magnet inside the piston. And the stacker setting is here on the panel. Right now it's set at 5 in the stack. There's 0 in and out. Push this button right here. It tells you how many total cycles, just like an hour meter. Push the mode back again, you get here. If you want to change that to 10, the first button there, just push it until it gets to, well, 10 would be, right there would be the second digit. Right now it's cycling because I brought it to 0. And since there's 0 in there, it cycled the stacker. If you have a problem with it, there's a reset button. Other than that, it's really just pushing it until you got the right number and pushing the mode, and it gives you total cycles. And that's the stacker. The computer knows where the cart is based on these limit switches. This is the home limit switch. That's what stops the cart, and that's what tells the computer it's okay to go to the next section. And there's limit switch number 2. That's in the middle of the machine. Limit switch number 2 tells the computer it's done with the cycle, and you can go home for either the top cycle, or it ignores it when you're making a single face pallet, and it goes directly to the stacker. It stops at the stacker with limit switch number 3. It tells the computer to stop forward motion, and it also tells the computer it's okay to stack the pallet, as long as the magnetic limit switch 4 and 5 are active and the top board station is open. If they aren't, the stacker will end up stacking the cart. That's why you never want to bypass these magnetic limit switches. And that's the magnetic limit. That's the limit switches and the magnetic limit switch. This is inside the electrical panel. Your power comes in here from the top, and it goes to the 3 fuse holder, which has blowout indicators, so you don't need a meter to check if you got a blown fuse. The light lights up. Then it goes to different components. This is the inverter that runs the cart motor. You can change forward and reverse speeds on here using different models. There's a different way of doing it. You get a book with it usually. The other power goes to the power supply that powers all the electrical components. They're all 24 volt DC coming out right here. Feeding here. Negative, positive, 24 volts. 230 or 460 coming in. If you have 460 like this machine, it goes into here from the top, 460. Coming out the bottom, 230. Feeding 230 power to this power supply. Then coming out 24 DC. This is the computer for the machine. All the top are inputs and all the bottom are outputs. Right here is the back of your counter. And these are your normally open, normally closed contacts. Periodically they may go bad. You just make sure, see whether they're green or red in the back as to whether they're closed or open to replace them. This is your indicator light. This is your motor starter for the stacker. This is your overload for the stacker. When it trips, you reset it. It has a potentiometer on it that you can turn to increase the capacity, the amperage load, if you have a problem with power to it. This is your tool fire relay. This right here is the 120 voltage to the machine with a blowout indicator. So it tells you whether or not that fuse is blown. The next one is your brake. The brake also has a 100 ohm brake resistor that carries the heat upon braking of the cart. And that also has a brake, it also has a blowout indicator, so you can tell whether it's fuse is blown. This is your positive 24 DC fuse. It also has a blowout indicator. It tells you there may be a problem upstream with the power out of the power supply. Up here, you have your forward and your reverse relay, and you got your emergency stop relay. Everything on these terminals 6 and 10 are your emergency stop circuits. If there is a jumper wire between 6 and 10, it kills the machine. All your emergency circuits are hooked here to 6 and 10. That's inside the panel. This is the setup of the tool mount. These happen to be 70 tools, but because of that slot right here, this tool mount also accommodates 80 tools. CN80 in the Max, 80 in other brands, but this happens to be a 70. This jack screw is not to be over tightened because you have problems with them if you over tighten them in the tool mount. When they're brand new and you put them on a brand new tool mount, sometimes they seat a little bit at the bottom. They may need to be retightened after a couple hours of use. These two bolts here loosen up to raise that up to get it out of the holder. This brush right here is mounted right here with 2 bolts. The brush applies pressure to the deck boards against the board stops. That brush needs to be in there and it needs to be flat. When you put it in the tool mount, set it into place, tighten these 2 bolts, make sure it's down and seated on the head cap of the tool, and then slowly tighten the jack screw down. Do not over tighten the jack screw. You will have a problem. And then lock down this lock nut. And that's all with the tool mount, other than this shoe on the bottom. There's a gap distance between the very bottom and the nose of the tool. We usually set them about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch. That's the reveal between the very bottom and the gap up to the bottom of this tool. That's adjusted with 2 bolts on the other side, here and here. That shoe slides up and down on the tool mount. All the air fittings are quick disconnect. Just slide them back and the airline comes right off. And that's it for the tool mount. At the beginning of the setup, you do the bottom board station first. So first, get the cart to the home position. The center stringer usually stays in place if you're doing 3 stringer. Our stringer we have right now is 3/4, is actually 1.5 inches. So we have this backstop set at 3/4 of an inch. Usually leave about 3/16 to a 1/4 inch gap to allow debris to go down in between it. Then you set your outside. Right now we're doing a pallet that's 30.5 inches wide. So we're going 15.25. Well, we're going, actually it's bigger than that. And this tape, you just follow it and set the outside. Set your outside dimensions, and you usually add about a 1/16 in case there's a little give, so it's not too tight. Then the next thing is, you get your top board. Well, you get your top boards to come up to position top boards. So go ahead and flip the switch for the top board. There you go. Put a straight edge or a piece of wood here. This bar has to first be to a 90-degree angle to the cart. There's adjustment screws right there. There's a lock nut, and you screw the shaft right there to get it to go to a 90. Once it's to a 90, straight edge, this face has to be perfectly flush into a 90. It's going to be parallel, it's going to be right on the money with this face. Once that's set, you set the back fence flush with that same plane. There's 3 screws for that, 3 bolts. That sets this station. Then you have the same 3/16 to a 1/4 inch gap in between to set that. Your bottom board bar is set to 7/8 of an inch when it's flush with the top of the cart. You have a 7/8 gap. To get the stroke correct, you got to have that stroke correct. That sets this side. To set this side, do the same thing. This face has to be perfectly to a 90 to the cart with a level. Then you bring it up on both the front and back to where it's flush with the outside. That sets this bar. Then loosen this screw, that bolt, and the bolt here. And then you have a 1/4 inch gap here. Come on around, you can see that 1/4 inch gap up there. That 1/4 inch gap right here, and 1/4 inch gap up front. Because these cylinders only have a 3/4 inch stroke, that'll make everything perfectly flush in that plane. When the cart moves forward, this is part of the recycle package and it gets activated and goes to full extension and everything's going to be flush. That's the width of the pallet. Let's go ahead and put the stringers in. The only height adjustment for the bottom board station is that handle right there. These screws. That's only adjusted for the bottom board station. These 2 lock nuts get loosened. The 2 on that side get loosened. handle, you turn it until everything set at the bottommost position is flush with the very top of this section. Go ahead and feed put the bottom boards up and feed your 3 bottom boards in place. Good, lift it up. Just the bottom. All right, go ahead and put your boards in place. All right, to set this up, kill the machine, turn the power off and air off. Come over here and look straight down this plane right here. Come on down. The very bottom of the tools have to be right even with or below the top plane of your bottom board. That's adjusted up here with that crank handle, where you loosen these 4 screws. That's only adjusted for the bottom board station. All right, we've set up the bottom board station. We're ready to energize the machine. Go ahead and pull the emergency stop out. Push the e-stop reset button below it, right there. The machine airs up. I'm just testing each tool to make sure each one fires by manually firing the solenoid, one at a time. Now it's ready to go. Bring the bottom board station up. Bottom board. Make sure the wood's in place and the boards are against their stop. Cycle start. Starts the cycle. Okay. Cycle pause button now. The cycle pause buttons allows you to do any manual operation on the machine. Top board, bottom board, forward, reverse. The cycle pause button has to be pushed in. It has to be out for automatic cycle. It's now out. Go ahead and cycle start. The cart comes back. The pop-up cylinders pop it out of the jig. Flip it, manual. Now it's ready for the top board station. Now that we've done the bottom station, nailed it, now we're going to do the top station. On the top station, to get the top boards up after you flip the pallet, you can either push the button here to activate the top, or turn the switch up there to activate the top. I'm going to push the button. The top are now in place. Everything's set except your board stops. Depending on where you want them, lay them out. Put your board stops to the back side of it. Go ahead and put them in place. Just lay them on here, and then you can move these stops side to side to adjust them wherever you need to have them, based on how many deck boards you have. If it's full of deck boards, you're only going to be using one, and it's only going to be in the back, but you still need a 1/4-inch spacer the full length. You can do that with some 1/4-inch angle iron, 1/4 by 1.5 inches. The height on the top board station is a different adjustment than on the bottom board station. This crank handle is only for the bottom board station. These jack screws are only for the top board station. So if your pallet height is different, the top board is going to be adjusted with this jack screw here and the one over on that side for the top only. And when you do the bottom, talk about height, I'm talking about from the bottom of the shoe. If you look down right now, they're pretty close to being flush with this plane. They can be dropped down a little bit more, but they're pretty close to where they need to be now. The nail position tab, you set the first one at the 0 point, and that should be about 3/4 of an inch in. Once you get the 0 point, then you can set all the rest of the tabs for that top board. You can measure from the lead board to the second lead board to get the distance from lead to lead on your tabs. The lead for the first one to the third one to get the positioning for this one. The lead to the fourth for the fourth one, and so on. Center to center, you have to first drive your first nail in automatic, and that gives you a 0 point. Same thing for the bottom station. I didn't go over that earlier, but it's the same thing. Set one tab up, beginning point at the 0 point, run it through, nail the first nail, stop it, see where it nailed. If it's correct, you can do your spacing. If it's not, you can adjust that. Remember, bottom for the bottom, top for the top. Let's go ahead and run a pallet. All right, we're ready to make a pallet. Cycle pause button's pushed in. We need it to be in automatic mode, so pull the cycle pause button out. To start forward motion, push the cycle start, and it'll start. It goes to the stacker, comes back home, stopping at the home limit switch, automatically brings the bottom up for the next pallet. Let's go ahead and make the next pallet. All right, bottom board station's all set. Let's go ahead and cycle start. Green button, lower right. And it returns home. The pop-ups pop it up to facilitate flipping. Flip the pallet. Index it. Push the top board button. Or you can push the switch, turn the switch for top board there. Load up the top boards. Goes on the other side. Yeah. Alright, now we're going to push the green cycle start. Then it's going to go to the stacker. The stacker will not stack if that is not open. Now what I'm going to do is turn on the inspection cycle. What the inspection cycle does, after it nails the top and bottom, it comes back to the home position for an inspection of the face of the pallet. Stops for 4 seconds, allowing you time to cycle pause if there's a problem with the nails, in case you have materials that could be ripped up on the face of it. And then it goes to the stacker after 4 seconds and stacks. That's only with the inspection cycle on. We're ready for the bottom board, cycle start. Pop up, flip the pallet, index, and push the top board button. Deck boards being put in place. Remember, inspection cycle is on. All right, we're ready to start to finish the pallet. Remember, the inspection cycle is on. So it's going to nail and come back home for 4 seconds, then go to the stacker. Go ahead and cycle start. All right, this is a display of the single face option. Single face option is where we're only going to do deck boards, and it's going straight to the stacker to stack. We're just going to simulate it because we have a pallet here. We aren't making single face pallets. Some of the customers make fence panels in the same way. It's basically the same thing. It's just stringers with deck boards on one side. Turn the single face switch to on. Put the stringers in place and the deck boards in place. Bottom boards up. Cycle start. Notice it's going to the stacker. We're stopping it short because we aren't making that type of pallet, but that's the setup for a single face pallet. It's right now cycle pause. I'm bringing it back home. So we can make the pallet. Remember, that is only when the single face is on. I'm going to turn it back off so we can run top board, which you can operate from a switch here, top board, or the button down here, top board. Go ahead and push the top board after you flip it down. All right, top board up. 5 deck. Alright, one thing with the single face option on, doing deck boards only on one side, going to the stacker, you're going to have to readjust your magnetic limit switches for when it opens and when it closes. But keep in mind, the stacker counter, once it gets to your stack count, will stop operation of the machine completely. What you need to do is you need to discharge manually by pushing cycle stacker and cycle stacker. And you got to hold it for 3 seconds and then it'll activate. 1, 2, 3. Then you can manually discharge at any time. You need to do that every time if you're doing a single-sided pallet or a single-face pallet. All right, top board, ready to go. Cycle start. you got all the safety, all your safety features, all these buttons here, all these stickers here are telling you that you need your eye protection, you need your ear protection. You need to watch where your hands are at all times, because this machine does live fire metal objects. Thank you very much.